3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Moon Trees Live 2, a distance learning adventure brought to you by the USDA Forest Service and the Natural Enquirer with help from our good friends at NASA. I'm your host, I'm Chad Edwards. Now, welcome to all our returning friends and even to our new friends. I'll just remind you that I'm a conservation educator with the USDA Forest Service, and the Forest Service manages about 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands throughout the United States. We also work in partnership with tribal and state governments, as well as private landowners, to benefit another 600 million acres. Not even to mention our work internationally. Whew. All right. I'm so glad you could join us today to learn about the journey that our little seed friends are taking. Now, if you haven't heard about moon trees before, it's a really exciting science project that we're doing. The Forest Service provided hundreds of tree seeds to NASA. And then NASA launched those seeds into space for about 26 days. The spacecraft came back to Earth, and the Forest Service tested the seeds to see how they did on their long voyage. Well, it turns out several of them survived. So we planted them in a nursery, and guess what? They've started sprouting. Very soon, we're going to have moon trees that we can actually plant. Isn't that amazing? Now, if you want to learn more about the mission and the kinds of trees that we sent into space, we talked about those things in our previous program called Moon Trees Live 1. So when you're done with this, you might as well go back and check that one out too, right? Hint, 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 hint. Okay. So Moon Trees Live was a 45-ish minute long program where we played some videos and answered some viewer questions live. Now, bear with us today because we're doing things just a little bit differently here on Moon Trees Live 2. We also made some videos for this program, but we just couldn't wait to play them for you. So they're actually already online. You can go and find those videos too. There are 3 in total. Episode 1 is about recovering the spacecraft after it came back to Earth. Episode 2 is about testing the seeds to see if they survived the trip. And then episode 3 is about how we grow the seeds. But what does that leave for today? Well, today is all about you. No specific learning objectives. We've done enough talking. We want to hear from you. So feel free to share any questions you have about moon trees with us. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. Just comment on this video while we're live on the Natural Enquirer YouTube channel. And as always, we have some knowledgeable experts standing by who will be happy to answer you. Our experts include Rachel Bayer with the USDA Forest Service, Jessica Nicholson with the Natural Enquirer, and Eman Beck, John Davis, and Kelly McCarthy with NASA. If you see a response from the Natural Enquirer, then those answers are coming from our official experts. Our online experts aren't the only folks helping us out today. I'm also really excited to have several scientists with me and you and all of us here to talk about moon trees. So let's quickly introduce Bianca Rim with NASA and Cass Dumrose and Kayla Harriman with the USDA Forest Service. Bianca, let's start with you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. Bianca Rim. I'm an electrical engineer with NASA Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. And I work on, my part of the work on the Artemis campaign is as a utilization engineer with Gateway Deep Space Logistics. And I focus on a lot of topics on how we can utilize our space assets to achieve our lunar exploration goals.
That is so interesting. That's so interesting, Bianca. I had no idea that was even a career that I could be when I grow up. So thank you for sharing. How about you, Cass? Let's welcome Cass. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, MChat. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Cass Demrose. I'm a scientist with the USDA Forest Service, and I research how to grow native plants and get them to grow out on our ecosystems.
Oh, what great work. Welcome back, Cass. Also, welcome back, Kayla. Kayla, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Amchat. It's great to be here again. My name is Kayla Harriman, and I am a seed specialist with the Forest Service, and I am located in Bend, Oregon.
Very, very cool. I don't know if I said it, but I'm right outside of Washington, D.C. And so wherever you are across the country watching, thanks for joining us. Now, it's enough about us, right? What questions do you all having at home or at school have about this program? What do you want to know about moon trees? Just remember to type them into the comments below. And, oh, hey, look, we've got one that just popped in. Here's our first question. Lisa Grail Crescent Elementary from Rhinelander, Wisconsin would like to know, why was this experiment done? Alexandra from Sherwood Elementary also wants to know why you did this, and why does it matter what happens to seeds in space? Anybody want to take a first stab at that?
I can take a first stab at it. Chat.
Thanks, yes.
First, if we're talking about Rhinelander, we got to say hey to the Hodags, right? Isn't that the mascot, I think, of that community in northern Wisconsin? I think so. But what we're trying to do with moon trees, I think, is a couple of things. One, this is a project that was started back in the 70s, and we're bringing it around again because we think it's a really cool way to engage with students and scientists about space exploration and about how trees grow on our own planet. So that's part of it. But we're going to do a little bit of science too. We're investigating how space flight may or may not affect the germination and growth of tree seedlings. And that's what I'm going to be working on here in Idaho.
Fun. So we're engaging the public and doing our big science project at the same time. I'm also impressed that you knew about Rhinelander. I hope that they're in their classroom cheering for that.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Kayla, would you like to weigh in? You don't have to, but if you like, you're welcome to.
Sure, happy to weigh in, Amchat. I think, when we're kids, we're really excited about space, and we're also really excited about nature. And this is really just a fantastic way to bring those two topics together and really encourage you guys to think about all the things that you can possibly do when you grow up. And so not only is it really about education, but it's a way to just get us all excited about nature and get us excited about science, and bring those things together.
Awesome.
I have something to add.
Perfect. Thanks, Bianca.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, one reason I think it's important to see what happens to the seeds in space is that we'll be sending people to space, and they'll need to have food in space. And eventually, if they would like to set up a permanent base off the planet, they'll need to be able to grow food. So we need to find out what the effects of the space environment are on those seeds so that we can make sure that it would be safe for astronauts and humans and animals or pets or whoever we take up there to eat the food that's grown.
Amazing. That's something that I never thought about. Wow, growing food on a space station. Well, thank all three of you for that one. We have another question that's come in from our friend Thomas at Sherwood Elementary. Now, Thomas wants to know if the packaging that the seeds were in made any difference. And if there was no packaging or some different type of packaging, would things have changed? Sounds like exactly what our science project was about. Would any of you like to weigh in on that?
Sure, I can weigh in on that. We know that NASA was able to record a lot of information while the spacecraft was up in space. And some of those things were temperature. And we know that that packaging protected those seeds. We've seen it happen here in our own seed storage facilities, where it protects those seeds from things like moisture, which can prevent, harbor a lot of mold. We know that that packaging was adequate on the spacecraft because our seed came back nice and dry, intact, and no presence of mold. So if we hadn't packaged it in those thick 6 mil plastic raviolis that you guys saw, there's a chance that our seed would have been exposed to some unforeseen moisture and we could have ended up with moldy seed.
Ravioli spacesuits. I think that's going to be the name of my band. Yeah. Another question that has come in is, what's the current status of the seeds? Where are they? What's going on with them?
Ed, do you want to start, Kayla, since you were the distributor of seeds, and then I'll chime in?
Sure, happy to start, Cass. So the current status is most of the seed has been distributed to nurseries or sent to Moscow, Idaho, where Cass is. And it's been put into what we call our stratification process to get those seeds to wake up. Remember, we talked a little bit about dormancy. Those seeds were dried down and put into a stable state where we would hope that they would essentially just take a nap on their trip. They're back, and we x-rayed them here in Bend, and we didn't see any change in the internal tissue. So we imaged them with that digital x-ray before they went up, and then I imaged them with that digital x-ray after they went up. And we didn't see any change to that internal tissue, which is actually what we want to see. I think that tells us a lot, that it means we packaged them properly, we prepped them properly, and NASA was able to take care of that package and provide a safe space in the payload as it went up into space. So those are all great things that have resulted out of that. And now most of the seed actually is in Cass's hands in Idaho.
Yeah, so the seeds came to be about a month ago, and I put them into a running water soak so that they could get some water back into the tissues and get them to start metabolizing. And then I put them into a cooler at about 38, 39, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And the seeds were chilled for that month. And that chilling helps with the metabolic process to make the seeds understand that it's now their time to germinate. And on Wednesday of this week, we started the germination trial. We sowed those seeds, and they're now in our greenhouse. And every day we go out now and look to see who's sprouting, who's germinating. And if you might recall, we have 3 different groups of seeds. We had some seeds that we sent to NASA very early in the process, and those were in the Orion capsule for about a year and 3 months or something like that. Then we sent them some fresh seeds right before liftoff, and then Kayla kept some control seeds that didn't go into space. Those were kept at Bend, and so we're comparing the germination of those 3 groups of seeds, because it'll help us understand if there was an effect of long-term storage before they went into space, the effect of space, and then just what our control seeds would do having not gone into space. So we'll have a little bit of information about all 3 effects, and we're looking forward to seeing those little seedlings start to stick their noses out of the soil that we've got them started in.
How exciting. They went into space, you brought them back, gave them a bath and then a nap, and now they might be waking up in the nursery. This is so cool. Bianca, I have a question for you. So this is our big giant science project. We want to know, did all of the payload return safely from this Artemis 1 mission?
I didn't work on this payload in particular, but I was able to get in touch with the payload integrator, and she seemed to indicate that it was successful and that they got, what they expected to get back. So I didn't hear about any issues in recovering any of the payload. So I think that's a good indication that they did receive everything back.
All right. What great news. What great news. We love a successful mission. Quick pause to give shouts out to our friends who are asking questions. So, shout out to MIT Wallace Observatory. Wow. Also to Crescent Elementary in Rhinelander and Sherwood Elementary in Sandy Springs, Maryland. So, for those of you who are asking questions, be sure to put the name of where you are if you want to shout out. We're still taking questions, of course. So, here comes a question from Cameron S. from Sherwood Elementary School in Sandy Spring. Cameron wants to know why the seeds had dots on them. What were those dots on the seeds?
I can explain that one for you. Really, it was just a way for us to track which seed came from where. When we look at the Moon Trees project, we want to be able to distribute these trees all across the country to engage people of all ages into forestry and space science. And when we originally did the first Moon Trees with Stuart Rosa, we brought up these species, but we didn't think so much about the right tree and the right place, which you can find out more if you go back to Moon Trees 1. But we wanted to make sure that we had Douglas fir across its range so that it could be most successful if you picked, if you were able to plant a tree at your school. So we had Douglas fir from the coast over by the Pacific Ocean. And then we had Douglas fir from the inland Northwest up near Idaho. And then we had Douglas fir from the southern part of its range. And we did that so that the tree can be best suited for all the wonderful locations that it could possibly be planted. The only way to determine the difference between those Douglas fir seed was to give them just a little mark. So we used a Sharpie pen and we marked some of them red, some of them blue, and then the other ones didn't get any mark. And that was the easiest way for us to distinguish between those 3 different Douglas fir populations. We also did the same for sycamore.
Very cool. I remember on one of the prior episodes, something about all the seeds getting mixed up together. So we made sure that we did this science project a little bit more organized than our last one. Way to go. That's science, isn't it? Always going one step further. Doing things a little bit better. Now, our next question is probably for you, Bianca. Noah at Sherwood Elementary School is asking, is all of this so we can build a future civilization on the moon?
Wow, that's a good question. And I guess a future civilization, I'm not sure I would maybe characterize it like that, but let's just say that I do think that we want to go to the moon and be there permanently. You have people living and working there permanently, researching there permanently. I don't know if it would be a full-scale civilization, but I mean, probably at least a community. And so, yeah, we will have to build things there to sustain even just a small community. So a lot of it is research to that end. And, you know, that ultimately means learning about the universe that we live in. So I think that's, you know, kind of even a bigger picture perspective of it. But yeah, I think building some sort of infrastructure on the moon will be a part of that. So I hope that answers the question.
Wow. I couldn't imagine commuting from here to the moon. I'd probably just want to stay if I worked there. So, all right. Thank you for thinking about how to feed those folks. Another question came in about how did the seeds survive without any oxygen or sunlight? Can somebody explain to us maybe how seeds survive without oxygen or sunlight?
Kayla and I are looking at each other to see who wants to take this one on first.
I
Well,
get started if you
yeah,
want.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start it. So the really magical thing about seed is they have what's called a seed coat. And everything within that seed coat, the endosperm and embryo, is what will germinate and then become a seedling. Until it actually germinates, it's protected in that seed coat. So it actually doesn't need any sunlight at that time. If we want that seed to be able to store in some kind of setting, like on a spacecraft or on the moon, or currently here on Earth, we store it in seed freezers. They don't need any sunlight because, kind of like I said earlier, they're sort of just taking a nap. And so we're not trying to engage them in any kind of metabolic process that would create them to need those things at that moment. Cass can probably talk a little bit more about the plant physiology that actually does need those things.
Yeah, and so the seeds that we sent into space were all dried down to a very low moisture content. And we do that because that reduces the metabolism rate of the seeds. They're alive, but they're just barely metabolizing. So they're not using a lot of oxygen either. But part of this Artemis 1 mission, and Bianca can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a test flight to make sure that all the systems would work for when we put astronauts in it the next time and sent them into space. So NASA, I'm assuming, was testing out all of the environmental controls in that Orion capsule, including air that the astronauts would have to breathe. So there was a little bit of oxygen moving around in that cabin as well. But because our seeds are metabolizing at such a low rate because they're so dry, they don't need very much oxygen either. So when we got them back to Earth, part of that process of waking them up is giving them water so that they have all of the water that they need to start that metabolic process and to go from, as Kayla says, napping to being energized and ready to start sprouting and growing.
I'll just add that, yeah, that's exactly true, Cass. And lots of sensors and equipment to monitor what the spacecraft experienced, as well as, its potential contents and its potential passengers. So, yeah, that was a big part of the mission.
Well, Bianca, while we have you, one of the questions coming in is, so was that a success?
I think it definitely a success. And really sometimes with experiments or, research, sometimes the results, even if it's not what you expected or what you hoped for, actually just getting the information makes it successful so that you can figure out how you can accomplish your goals with that information.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to give two quick shout outs and then I have a question. I'm probably going to come to you, Cass. We'll see. So we've got two shout outs. One is going to go, oh, it moved. Okay, one is going to go to Tall Pines STEM Academy and Wakefield Marinisco in Michigan. I really hope I said you guys' name right. So glad you're on the program with us. Don't worry, Cass, that wasn't the question. I know you seem to know all about the schools. No, the question for you is about the scientific process. So we know that all of these seeds are, grown in nurseries, but some of them were grown in outdoor nurseries and some were in greenhouse nurseries. So does that have any effect on their growth?
Yes, it does have an effect on their growth. We're going to be growing moon trees a couple of different ways, and it depends a little bit on the nursery that's growing them. Some of our Forest Service nurseries grow their seedlings in containers, as well as in fields, in soil. And it also depends a little bit on the species. We have a couple of what we call hardwoods species, the sycamore and the sweet gum that went into space, and they grow really fast compared to the evergreens or the conifers. So we have a couple of nurseries that are going to grow those hardwoods in the fields just because they can, and they'll grow fast and get large. But typically we grow things in the greenhouse just because we can control a lot of the environmental conditions, and we can make those seedlings grow just at optimum levels so that we can get them as large as we need them sooner than when we grow them outdoors in fields. And it also depends a little bit on where you are in the country. If you're in the Southeast, we grow a lot more seedlings in soil, in fields, because the growing conditions are good. And in some places like Idaho, where it's colder more, we rely on greenhouses just because we need to have that favorable environment for seedling growth.
Great. A quick follow-up to that is, how long do you think it'll take before these are ready to be sent to their final planting site? Is it days, weeks, question. Years?
That's a good question too. And again, it's going to depend a little bit on the species. And I'm optimistic that we're going to have some seedlings available this fall, particularly some of those hardwood species. I think we might have some of the conifers ready to go this fall as well. And then we're anticipating some more next spring, some more the following fall. And then we haven't mentioned it, but we kept some seeds in storage, some seeds that went around the moon. We didn't distribute them yet. We're hanging on to them because we're curious about the germination of the seeds that did go into space, and we don't want to promise everyone a tree and then not be able to provide that. And then we're also just not sure about how many of you folks out there are going to put in a proposal to get a moon tree. So we'll make this little advertisement, right? NASA and the Forest Service are going to be asking folks to make proposals to receive a moon tree. And so you should take advantage of that opportunity to get your own moon tree that you can plant near your school or in your community.
Wow. This is really such an amazing project. And I have the question, but this question is actually coming from Sammy in Wakefield. Now, Sammy wants to know, what in the world gave you the idea to send seeds into space in the first place? How did that start? Bianca, I know you talked a little bit about it, but who came up with this idea? How did this all come together?
Well, when I learned about it, I was excited to hear about the history of it. So I think, from what I understood, this is a good time for you guys to fact check me and make sure I'm up to date on this. But I heard that this came from the Apollo 14 mission, and that astronaut Stuart Roosa, who was a former smoke jumper, was approached by the USDA to carry the seeds as a kind of public outreach and engagement campaign, and that the Artemis 1 version of this, that same kind of concept, was really just kind of picking that up to develop some interest in kind of our new campaign to go to the moon, as well as enhance the partnerships amongst, what we could do with the USDA Forest Service. So I think that's what I got. So you let me know if I'm right about that.
Yep, you're right on it, Bianca. That's exactly it.
Thanks.
Spot on. Thank you. So our question, the next one is actually about the spacecraft and not about trees. Can you explain to us simply, Bianca, how was the rocket able to come back out of the atmosphere to skip once it had started its entry?
So that's not really my area of expertise, but I will say that you're saying the rocket, when it came back, yeah, that's not my area of expertise. Now I can get an answer for that question. So if I could get some way to reach back out, I'll follow up in the chat. So is that possible, MChat?
Of course. You are so
Okay.
awesome. So
Thanks.
Kids at home, you're gonna have to come back and check the chat later, because we're gonna try and get that one answered for you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you for being willing to take that one. Let's see. This one is for Kayla. Is there anything that you would recommend we do differently if tree seeds were launched again on a future NASA mission?
I don't know if there's anything at the moment I would recommend we do differently. I think one of the things we learned throughout this process was that I personally was trying to reduce the amount of space that we occupied in the spacecraft. That was really important because we weren't certain if all the payloads that were provided to NASA would be able to be included on this mission. And so that's how we, Cass and I decided upon this ravioli idea, is that if they needed to cut those raviolis apart, at least a tiny bit of seed would get put on there. Now we've learned a lot, and I think if we could do this again, we might try and send a little bit more seed. So I think next time I would just try to push for maybe more of the same seed so that we have more opportunity to do some testing on that seed or trials on that seed once it comes back. And then, potentially learn a little bit more or provide more moon trees across the country.
Yeah, and then I would just add that when you do science, it's not you do one study and then you're done, but you do one study and then you learn some things. Sometimes you make some mistakes, and then you do some more science and you try to answer new questions or go back and understand what didn't go right the first time. So we're right in the middle of this germination study right now, and we don't really know what the results are. It's going to take about a month till we know. And maybe based on what we see, we'll have some other questions about the packaging or how long the seeds were out of cold storage before they went into space. And so all of that information will help us make some decisions about how we do it again, where we can improve, where we think we really nailed it the first time. So that's sort of the way science works. You keep working at the problem, you keep expanding the ideas, and you keep moving forward.
That's right. Always moving forward. Thank you. That's what we do in science, right? Always moving forward. So there are a lot of questions coming in about how can you become a custodian of one of these moon trees, or basically how to apply for a moon tree seedling. I want you to know that more information will be coming out soon. We're going to release that. And before this is all over, we'll put an email in the chat so that you can contact them to make sure that you receive all communications that come out later on how you and your organization can submit a proposal. We've got a couple of questions, but I want to pause to give a quick shout out to our friends at Morton Arboretum in Lisle, Illinois. Yes, arboretums, places where we grow trees. And Statham Elementary in Georgia. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Oh boy. Time is really flying by, you all. We've been learning so much today, and it's starting to feel like people are hitting their class time limits because we've answered all the questions in the chat, and that's really amazing. But that does mean it's coming time for us to wrap up things for the day. I'm so sorry. I wish we could do this all day. But don't worry. If we missed your question that are still coming in, you can always send them to us at fsconservationeducation@gmail.com. Again, that's FS, like Forest Service, Conservation Education. That's all one word, at gmail.com. And you don't just have to send us your questions either. Feel free to let us know, what you thought about the program. And we did it a little bit differently than the last one. So what did you think about this format? Did you like it? Let us know. And then we'll call that our little science experiment. Okay. So we want you to know that we're going to continue to track the growth of our tree seeds. So to get the latest information and to get the latest Moon Trees Live educational materials, be sure to check out the Natural Enquirer website and the Forest Service website about Moon Trees Live. There's a little tab on there. Just follow the links that appear on the screen. Let's take a deep breath and smile, everybody, as we thank all of our friends who helped us today from both the USDA Forest Service, the Natural Enquirer, and NASA. So right now, let's say farewell to our wonderful panelists today. Kayla, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, thanks, Chat. It's been great to be with you all, and I look forward to more questions as this project continues.
Right. Thanks again for joining us today, Kayla. How about you, Cass? Anything that you want to add?
Nope, I'd just say thanks everyone for joining us, and I'm going to guess that there will be a Moon Trees Live 3, and then maybe we can look at some seedlings next time. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun. Thanks again, Cass. How about you, Bianca? Would you like to wrap us up?
Well, yeah, thank you for everybody for joining, and thank you for having me here today with NASA. And I'm really looking forward to finding out how we can get moon trees too. Would love to connect with other moon tree custodians once those of us who become them, are able to do that. And yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. So love the project.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
thank you, MChat, too. Sorry, just wanted to say that.
Oh, so sweet. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that you all were here, and you all are different types of scientists. So hopefully that showed some of our students at home some of the different careers that they can explore, because the world of science is huge. So thanks again, everybody, for participating. And of course, a big thanks to you at home for watching and you at school for watching. Yes. Now, remember to check out Moon Trees Live 1, as well as all the other videos that we have. There are 3 of them in total. So there's Moon Trees Live 2. In that Moon Trees Live 2 series, there's episodes 1, 2, and 3. If you're interested in our other programs, our other distance learning programs like this one, check them out at fsnaturelive.org. We have programs on climate change, freshwater, grasslands, pollinators, so much more. Check it out for the full list. Grab a tub of popcorn and enjoy watching them. They're great. Now, once you know, we have a whole other program coming up in September featuring none other than Woodsy Owl. Yes, this will be our 3rd installation. So in Woodsy Owl Live 3, we'll talk about how we can do our part to lessen the impacts of climate change. So be sure to keep an eye out for that one, and as well as to be on the lookout for more updates on our moon trees and those tree seeds. So you go ahead and blast off, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care now.
Three, two, one.